Fear. It's one of the most powerful emotions we experience as human beings. It has kept us alive for thousands of years, warning us about threats, dangers, and situations that could harm us. Without fear, our ancestors wouldn't have survived wild animals, harsh environments, or unknown challenges. But here's the interesting part. While fear once protected us, today, in the modern world, it often holds us back. We don't fear lions on the savannah anymore. These aren't physical dangers, but psychological ones. And yet they feel just as real. Think about the last time you hesitated to do something you wanted. Maybe it was applying for a new job, starting your own business, approaching someone you admire, or sharing your creative work online. What stopped you? Most likely, it wasn't a lack of ability. It was fear. That little voice whispering, "What if I fail? What if people laugh? What if I'm not good enough?" That fear of failure is like an invisible wall that keeps us locked in our comfort zone. And while it feels safe in that comfort zone, deep down we know we're not truly living there, we're just surviving. Psychology teaches us that fear of failure is deeply tied to our need for approval and belonging. As social creatures, we crave acceptance. Failing makes us feel like we'll lose that acceptance, like we'll be judged or excluded. That's why failure feels so terrifying. It threatens not just our goals, but our identity and our place in the world. But here's the thing. The fear of failure is often worse than failure itself. The mind creates vivid scenarios of embarrassment and disaster. But in reality, failure usually teaches us, reshapes us, and pushes us closer to success. Think about how a child learns to walk. They stumble, they fall, they cry, but they get back up over and over again. They don't stop walking because of fear. If they did, none of us would ever have taken our first steps. But as we grow older, something changes. We start to attach meaning to failure. Instead of seeing it as part of learning, we label it as shameful. Society teaches us that mistakes equal weakness, when in reality, mistakes equal progress. One of the most fascinating psychological insights about fear is that it's not always the situation itself that scares us, but the meaning we attach to it. Imagine two people standing on a stage in front of an audience. One person feels terrified, thinking, "Everyone will judge me if I make a mistake." The other feels excited, thinking, "This is my chance to share my ideas." Same situation, completely different emotions. The difference isn't reality. The difference is perception. And that's where the fear of failure lives, inside our perception. We magnify the risks and minimize the potential rewards. We tell ourselves that one failure means we are failures. But that's not true. Failure is an event, not an identity. You are not defined by a failed test, a rejected application, or a business that didn't succeed. Those are chapters, not the whole book. The truth is, fear of failure is like a shadow. It looks bigger than it really is, and it follows us wherever we go. But the moment we turn around and face it, we realize it's not as overwhelming as we thought. Psychologists have studied how fear impacts performance. One concept is our tendency to imagine the worst possible outcome and believe it's inevitable. Before we even try, our brain jumps to, "I'll embarrass myself," People will laugh. I'll lose everything. And the more we repeat those thoughts, the more real they feel. Our brains are wired to respond to imagined threats the same way they respond to real ones. That's why your heart races and your palms sweat, even when you're only thinking about failing, not actually failing. Your body reacts as if the danger is right in front of you. But here's the twist. Just as fear is learned, courage can be learned too. You weren't born afraid of public speaking, or afraid of failing a test, or afraid of taking risks. And because they were learned, they can also be unlearned. Every time you challenge your fear and take action, despite it, you weaken its grip on you. Let's take a step back and ask, why are we so afraid of failure in the first place? One reason is perfectionism. Perfectionism convinces us that if something isn't flawless, it isn't worth doing. So we avoid trying altogether, because the idea of imperfection feels unbearable. Another reason is comparison. In the age of social media, we constantly see other people's highlight reel success stories, achievements, awards, and we measure ourselves against them. When we see only their wins and none of their struggles, we assume we're the only ones failing. But here's the reality. Every success story you admire is built on a foundation of failures that nobody talks about. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Every light bulb moment was preceded by countless attempts that didn't work. Michael Jordan, considered one of the greatest basketball players of all time, openly admitted he missed more shots than he made. The reason he's remembered as a legend is not because he never failed, but because he never let failure stop him. These stories aren't just motivational, they're psychological reminders that failure is part of the process. When we fear failure, we're actually fearing growth, because growth requires us to leave what's comfortable, to step into the unknown, and to risk not getting it right the first time. Think of your brain as a muscle. Every challenge, every failure, every attempt that doesn't go as planned, those are like repetitions in the gym. They strengthen you, shape you, and prepare you for bigger challenges. If you only stay where it's easy, that muscle never grows. But here's something even deeper. At the root of fear of failure is often the fear of losing ours. We tie our value to outcomes. If I succeed, I'm valuable. If I fail, I'm worthless. But your worth is not dependent on results. You are valuable because of who you are, not what you achieve. This shift in perspective is powerful. When you understand that failure doesn't make you less worthy, you begin to approach life with more courage. You start to see failure as feedback, not final judgment. Now, let's be real. Overcoming fear of failure doesn't mean you'll suddenly stop feeling afraid. Fear doesn't disappear completely. It's part of being human. The goal is not to eliminate fear, but to change your relationship with it. Instead of letting fear control your decisions, you learn to walk alongside it. You acknowledge it, but you don't let it dictate your future. Psychologists call this acceptance. By accepting fear as a natural emotion instead of fighting it, you free yourself from its control. Imagine you're standing in front of a door. Behind that door is everything you've ever wanted. Growth, new opportunities. But guarding that door is fear. Most people see the fear and walk away, never realizing that the fear is just a test. The key is to walk through anyway. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable. Yes, your heart will pound. But on the other side of fear lies freedom. In fact, research shows that when people face their fears instead of avoiding them, their anxiety decreases over time. This is called exposure therapy in psychology. The more you expose yourself to the thing you fear, the less power it has over you. If you fear rejection, the best way to overcome it is to put yourself in situations where rejection is possible and realize you can handle it. If you fear failure, the best way to overcome it is to fail small. Controlled failures that teach you resilience. Over time, you train your brain to see failure not as a threat, but as part of the journey. And here's something crucial to remember. Success is not the absence of failure. Success is built on failure. Every mistake, every rejection, every setback is a stepping stone. The only true failure is giving up. The only way you lose is if you let fear stop you from trying. Otherwise, every attempt moves you forward. So the next time fear of failure whispers in your ear, I want you to ask yourself this. What's worse, failing or never trying at all? Because failure might sting for a moment, but regret lasts a lifetime. Fear of failure is like a shadow that stretches across every dream we chase. It lingers in the background, whispering doubts, magnifying risks, and convincing us to stay small. But what if instead of running from that shadow, we turned around, faced it, and stepped into the light? Psychology shows us that fear is not the enemy, it's a signal. A signal that we're stepping into new territory, that we're stretching beyond our comfort zone, that we're about to grow. Think about every major milestone in your life. The first time you rode a bike, the first time you spoke in front of a class, the first time you tried something you'd never done before. Fear was always there, but so was courage. And in every one of those moments, courage won not because fear disappeared, but because you chose to act anyway. This is where the real power lies. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward despite it. And the beauty of it is, courage grows with use. Every time you face fear, no matter how small the step, you're rewiring your brain. You're teaching yourself, I can do hard things. I can survive failure. I can rise stronger. That belief, built brick by brick, becomes unshakable confidence. We often think success belongs to the fearless, but the truth is, success belongs to the ones who were afraid and still showed up. The entrepreneurs who launched businesses not knowing if they'd succeed. The writers who published books not knowing if anyone would read them. The athletes who trained for years not knowing if they'd win. They weren't fearless, they were brave. The fear of failure is universal. Everyone feels it. The difference between those who achieve their dreams and those who don't is not talent, not luck, but the willingness to face that fear, to fall, to rise, and to keep moving forward. So how do you begin? Start small. Take one step in the direction of the thing you've been avoiding. Apply for that job. Share that idea. Speak up in that meeting. Launch that project. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to start. Psychology calls this the exposure effect. The more you do something, the less intimidating it becomes. Step by step, fear loses its grip. And when failure comes around, yes, it will remember this. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. Every failure carries a lesson, a redirection, a hidden opportunity. Sometimes failing is the very thing that sets you on the right path. When you look back years from now, you won't remember every step. Remember the courage it took to keep going. Imagine if every great innovator, leader, or creator had let fear of failure stop them. We wouldn't have airplanes. We wouldn't have electricity. We wouldn't have the art, the music, the technology, the breakthroughs that shape our lives. Progress exists because someone was willing to risk failure for the possibility of something greater. And the same is true for you. Somewhere inside you is a dream waiting to be pursued, a talent waiting to be expressed, a version of yourself waiting to come alive. Fear will always be there, but so will possibility. The question is, which one will you choose to listen to? Don't let the fear of failure trap you in what if. Let it push you into why not. Don't let it silence your potential. Let it fuel your determination. Because at the end of the day, fear is temporary, but regret is forever. You have one life, one chance to step into the person you were meant to be. Yes, You will fail. Yes, you will fall. But every time you rise, you'll rise stronger. Every scar will tell a story of resilience. Every setback will shape your comeback. So the next time fear knocks at your door, open it wide, invite it in, and then walk forward anyway. Because your dreams, your growth, your purpose, they live on the other side of fear. And you are braver than you think, stronger than you know, and more capable than you can imagine. Failure is not the end. It's the beginning of becoming. And if you're watching this right now, let this be your reminder. The time to act is now. Don't wait for the fear to go away. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Take the leap. Write that chapter. Make that call. Start that journey. Because the world doesn't need a perfect version of you. It needs a courageous one. This is your story. This is your moment. And fear of failure, it's just the first page.